Brad and Gerald come down from Gerald, went to sea. Two things happened when I went to sea. I screwed my guts up for a week at a time because it took a week to get from the heads of Fremantle to the heads of Melbourne. A week on a ship, and I was crooked from the moment I left the heads to the moment I got there. And I did that for 4 months. And I missed my mother that much. I wanted to get home. I was a bit of a mummy's boy in them days. So that was when I was 16. But I got into the building game, and Bobby got me involved as a delegate down at Pinjarra. Got me involved as a delegate with a company called Primary Building Company, and tried to get me to come on the executive. I didn't want to go on the executive, but as a sort of appeasement to Bob, I said, well, look, I'll come to the fucking general meeting. That'll do. I'll go to the general meeting. Well, I went to one general meeting, and I sort of got there about 8 o'clock. The meeting finished about 8:45, and by then I was appointed as a temporary organiser if I wanted the job. I couldn't take the job, and I went home and asked the missus, and as it turns out, I did take it on, and 40 years later we're here. It's interesting, when I got this, I had no idea about these shirts tonight, and I'm pretty stoked by them, let me tell you, they look fabulous. But that photo's on the front of it. The little weasel you see in that photo with the glasses on, standing there, that's a fellow named Ron Davies, who was the secretary of the union at the time. He was a hairdresser by trade, and he knew more about cutting hair because he knew fuck all about the building. He got sick in about 1974. He got sick. It was a disease called finger in till. We slammed his fucking fingers in the till. He kept knocking the money off, and we unloaded him and got rid of him. And I was appointed as in April '74 as the acting secretary at the time. And the one thing we determined then was that we were going to make the union something that workers could be proud of and do a job. The union then was 1,100 members, primarily main roads department, public works department blokes, SEC blokes, mainly government workers, but some very good trade unionists amongst them. And we built like hell. The bloke you see in that photo crouching down was a fellow named Tony Henry, probably one of the most militant union workers, organisers in the 70s. Tony currently now lives in Ireland, and he trained himself up to become a teacher of intellectually handicapped children, and he's a great bloke, still going. You see him when he comes back now and again, but that bloke's broke more concrete pours in this town than anyone. I see they just knocked the entertainment centre down in the city there. When they built that, Taylor Woodrow built that, we did a bit of demolition on that job ourselves, because we walked off a concrete pour there one day in the middle of it. It took us 2.5 weeks on jackhammers to knock the concrete out and start it all over again. And there was a lot of that done. We then built a team of blokes, you know. What we've achieved hasn't been just achieved by Kevin Reynolds, sure. You know, I can be considered a bit like a footy coach. You know, I coached a team, but I had a good team, and you can't win the game unless you've got a good team around you. We brought blokes like Jimmy Reid on, who's here now, who's with us for years, Peter Morrison, Neil McDonald, who's here. There's been lots of them, Johnny McCann, whole heap of organisers all through the 70s, and that. And they built up to be a formidable team. We were lucky to get a fellow named Jim Bacon. Jim Bacon was an organiser in Victoria, agreed to come to West Australia because he married a girl from WA. We put him in the Northwest, and he actually started in the early 70s. He was our first organiser in the Northwest. Jim went on to be the Premier of Tasmania. Not bad for a builder's labourer, who did, by the way, have a university education, but he'd rather work for the trade union movement. And we had people like Johnny Cummins, probably the greatest union organiser I ever worked with. Fabulous bloke. Johnny's unfortunately passed away, as a lot of others have. But we stuck it to them, and we did things that today you'd get locked up for, but there was always a means to an end, there was always a reason. I remember when Johnny Cummins come out of the northwest and he was going to go back to Victoria, and I said, I'll set you a challenge. You establish no ticket, no start in this city, and then you can go home. And he was the sort of bloke that if you challenged John, he'd always rise to the challenge. When we challenged John to do that, he did. We just shut the city down, and time after time after time, and sent people home. You've got to remember there were different laws them days. We didn't have task forces. We didn't have, I can remember Charlie Court wanting to declare a state of emergency for the amount of concrete pours we were busting, but he didn't. They weren't prepared to take us on, but they have learned over the years. The system's learned. We've gone further in this country as a trade union movement and as a labour movement to the right than you'd have ever expected. But in the short time we can't go through it all. But I mean, we've been through royal commissions, we've been through, I work with people like Normie Gallagher and Jack Mundy and a whole range of real tough, good trade unionists on the East Coast. The big thing with us here was we could always get support out of the Victorians and out of the East Coast. We're now seeing the start help. If we had a fucking problem with Jennings in the time, or Leighton's or whoever, get on the phone and they'd get stopped over in the East Coast. That's starting, that sort of camaraderie is starting to come back into the organisation. I hope for the future that's what will happen. So it's been a wonderful career. When I come into it, comrades, let me tell you, you're shit in a hole, and if you were lucky you got a bottle of phenyl to tip down there to get the blowflies away. And that was how it was. It's not bullshit. We've got documentation. There is a history book that's coming out in the next couple of weeks that you'll all get a copy of sent to your home. And it's just written by Rob Mitchell, who's our publicity officer, who's here with us today, and it goes and details some of the stuff, but it's got facts, figures and photos of what it was like. And it's all about, that is all about trying to get the young blokes to understand that nothing is given to you. Everything you've got, everything you enjoy, 4 weeks annual leave, superannuation, workers' comp, redundancy, paid public holidays, sick leave, decent wages, side allowances, structural frame, productivity, none of it was given to you by the boss. Every one of them had to be fought for. And when every one of them was fought for, the problem we have in this country is you have a lot of free fucking loaders who want all of those benefits but don't want to be in the club. And we suffer through that today everywhere. But at the end of the day, the struggles of the movement will continue to go on. We will continue to battle. Whether Kevin Reynolds is here or not is immaterial. It's a fact that the organisation has got to go on. I'm proud of the fact that I leave this union in a very, very strong position financially. I'm super proud of this facility. I think it's one of the best facilities that we've got. It's in the country. It's something that I intend to continue to have an interest in. I've undertaken to the executive to stay on the board out here and to continue an interest in the training centre in particular, and to continue to work with Mick and the team to assist them through the next year until the elections are over. I'm not a full-time official. The facts of life are Mick Buchan is the chosen successor, unanimously chosen. Yeah. That was a unanimous decision, and for those of you who wonder whether that included Joe McDonald, it certainly did, and he's 110% with Mick and behind Mick and alongside Mick. It'll be a very forceful future that we will have. We've got good leadership, and that goes a long way to making sure that we remain an active, good, solid union. I couldn't have wished, it seems like yesterday, we all get fucking old. It seems like yesterday that, I'm talking to Mark Binstead, who I see here, I'm talking to others who I've worked with who have been organisers. There's too many of us around here who have either been on the executive, been organisers, been delegates, you all know what you've done. You all know of the struggles we've been through. Tony Kelly down there, the fucking bulldog. I mean, you know, he's come across more maggots than I've ever fucking seen in my life, you know. But he knows how to approach them. You know, Johnny Pound, you're all here. You know, people who have really, really stood up over the years and been in every struggle. I say I leave it in good hands, you know, for a lot of reasons. I'm also very, very proud that every fucking blue that's been on, we've been in it. Whether it's been third wave, whether it's been fucking building the workers' embassy, whether it's been fighting for superannuation. You know, some things, you know, we mightn't have had all of our heart in it, but most of it we've been in there lock, stock and barrel. So we've done well as a union. Again, not something that I could do on my own. I said on radio the other day, I'm a bit like Nick Malthouse, mate. He coached the best football side in Australia, but he's got too fucking old. Anyone would think we're in Western Australia. So anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, there's a couple of things in life you can't get away from. You'll pay fucking tax, you'll die, and you'll get fucking old. So, and that's, we get to the stage, I wish there was 20 more years. People say to me, how are you going to be? I'm going to be fucking terrible. I don't want to go, but at the end of the fucking day, we wear out. And it's, you know, it's time that, I've had enough. I've done as much as I can do. I've enjoyed every fucking second of it. There isn't a better bunch of blokes. I said to Millsy this morning on 6PR, you know, they talked about how people have weighed in to help homeless, to help fight people who've been fucking caught up in fires and tragedies, help the tsunami people, you know, feeding kids with through our schools program, stuff that we do, you know, lots and lots of charity work. Never ever have I been more proud than to, you know, and really, really, really proud of the fact of the way building workers are so generous with their time and their money and their support for people who are worse off than us. I mean, we're the cream of the building industry. Those of us who do work on the good jobs, the big jobs, people say to me sometimes, you know, oh, us again, we got the levy. Yeah, you got the levy because you're earning the money. No good going to people down the road who have got no fucking conditions and no side allowances, no fuck all, and asking them to weigh in. They're battling to live. But we're the ones who are getting the dollars. I just want to say to you, you know, I've worked with lots and lots of people, good and bad, whether they've been, you know, there's, you know, not all bosses are arseholes. I've met a few good ones, but I've met a fucking lot of bad ones, right? So at the end of the day, I take people as I find them, and you know, it's the same. It's the same in industry. There's a lot of people out there that we've got to work on. We've got to teach them that unionism's the way. That if they club together, we can do something about making sure that we've got a future for our grandkids. Because the future, and I'll conclude on this, the future is a worry. It's a mighty big worry, what's happening to our industry, what's happening with the resource sector, the opening of the floodgates to foreign labour. You know, starts out, and you can see, you talk about the thin end of the wedge, you see it when it starts out, and people talk about we're only going to bring in coded welders and super tradesmen and all the rest of it. And then, you know, we'll bring in a few others and a few others. And under the latest position, the latest policy is on any project over $2 billion, and that, my friends, is all the resource projects. It's a total opening of the floodgate to foreign labour from anywhere, with no market research, with no consideration whatsoever. So I don't despair for myself, I don't despair for my kids, but I fucking despair for my grandkids. And that's why we've got to be prepared in the future when the struggles are on, the marches are on, the demonstrations are on, when we're out there in unity with the likes of the MUA and the ETU and the MUA and everyone else and the AMWU, that we all put our shoulders to the wheel, we all put our petty differences aside, because the march the other day showed to us that we can do it, we can unite on issues of commonality. and of principle, and that's what we should do. This union will go on to bigger and better things with positive leadership from Mick and the boys. I'll be there to help out. Thanks for your support. I couldn't have had a better working life than working for building workers. I've loved every minute of it. I love yous all. I can't shake all your fucking hands, but let me tell you, you're all in my heart, and I know when I go to my fucking grave, I did my bit, and I did it for the greatest bunch of blokes fucking out.
All right, fellas and ladies, that brings it to the end for the formal part of the evening. The beers will be on, the food will be coming on shortly.